What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Cookout 400 at Richmond Raceway, aka the action track. Although I'm not sure what's too actionable about it these days. It's actually quite boring, but for DFS purposes, that's nothing to complain about. Plus we're gonna have high tire wear because I hate when tires don't matter, so that's always a good thing for me. And with this being a shorter track, we're gonna get a good amount of lap data in practice, so we'll pretty much know who's gonna be the fastest cars. Just a matter of being able to keep it clean throughout the race. But either way, this will take place on Sunday, July 30th, around 3 p.m. Eastern. And if this happens to be your first time here, what's up? My name is Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. So I'm live on Sunday mornings, breaking down the entire slate, answering any questions you guys may end up having. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, or even if you don't, consider leaving a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Be nice, be mean, I don't really care either way. Call me ugly, but I'd love to hear from you. And really quick, I do have to sell out a bit. I know, I'm sorry, but not really. We got to do it though. Prize picks and underdog, promo code CPEN will get you a deposit match bonus up to $100 on either site. Use the link down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. I love both sites, but over on underdog, especially recently with NFL coming up very quickly, we already have week 1 salaries out over on DraftKings. But I've been doing a ton of best balls, and they have a $3 million two-first contest over on underdog, and plus you can play all the props you want over there, including NASCAR. But if you want to get in, start these drafts, because you can do up to 150 depending on the contest you are in. Better come in and get it on now because it's going to take you a while. So again, promo code CPEN and the link down below in the description for underdog and prize picks. All right, so let's get into the strategy portion of this video. And it's nothing too crazy. It's a short flat track, so we're typically looking at 2 to 3 dominators per lineup. You can always stretch that to 4 for a guy that can just pick up fast laps throughout the race and stay within the top 5 or something like that. But you're just mainly looking at 2 to 3 main lap leaders because we have 400 laps this weekend, so you can't just neglect that. Now I'm recording this part before practice and qualifying, so I don't know if there's going to be a bunch of big names in the back, but either way, you're going to have some guys up front because those dominator points can add up in a hurry. We have 400 laps, so if you take 70% of that, we're talking just under 300 dominator points. Obviously, give or take with caution laps because of fast laps, but yeah, that's a good chunk of dominator points that you're going to absolutely need in your lineups. Now, if we're looking at Richmond, is a 3/4 mile length track. It's got high tire wear, and I'd say the most comparable tracks to Richmond are probably going to be New Hampshire, Phoenix, and Gateway. You can also throw in Martinsville if you want, just because of the short flat track, but that's probably the least comparable of the bunch. So we're just looking at drivers that have showed speed at these track types, so speed in the next gen car at these track types. Also looking at Richmond from earlier this season and last year, green flag speed numbers. Also looking at the tire code and how drivers have performed in this exact tire combination, and probably the most important thing, how they perform on the track on Saturday. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown portion, I do have to mention one thing first, and that is Patreon, of course, is still offering free week trials. So if you want to come in, check out all the extra content and join the awesome community, we've got a couple hundred people over there, and I do appreciate y'all. Link is down below in the description or the pinned comment for that to get access to all the extra content. They do cover other sports as well, including baseball and NFL coming very, very soon. But you get access to the models, projections, optimizer, ownership projections, the Discord chat, articles, and basically everything that I have on there, which is a lot more than I can just mention, all the data you'd ever need. So if you want to come in, check it out, completely free for a week. Links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. All right, so let's get into it here. And practice and qualifying just now ended, so I just uploaded all the data. So we're going to go through this together for the first time. My just first initial reactions to the entire slate. And obviously, the more updated stuff will be on the Patreon and for the live stream tomorrow. And I want to tell you guys right now that if you are looking at the practice times, which I know are super important at tracks like this where we get a ton of lap data, but they're heavily skewed this week because Group A had a much, and I mean much faster track. And I can prove it to you when we're looking at the lap by lap data here. So let me pull up that tab really quick here. And the drivers highlighted in yellow are the ones that were in Group B. And as you can see, they pretty much take all the bottom spots here. You have JJ Yeley up here like in 10th. You have Ty Dillon above guys like Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr. So just to show you that these numbers are quite skewed. So if you were just blindly looking at some of the practice data, you were doing it wrong this week because it'll tell a story that it was not going to represent what we're going to see on the track on Sunday. And just to denote that Denny Hamlin is orange here. He was in the first group, but he went out very late, so his numbers just don't look as good as they should. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then we're looking at some of the practice data here. Like, you just cannot follow these numbers blindly. Like Denny Hamlin, as you can see, 34th. He's not the 34th best car, or worst car, I should say, on the track. So that's something to keep in mind this weekend, that you just have to stagger the groups and be mindful of the data that you are looking at. So let's start up top here with the man who's been killing it this year. Nice resurgence season, although sounds like it could be his last season. We will see. But we got Marty here at 11,000 on DraftKings, 14 flat over on FanDuel. He's starting in 10th, opened up as the odds-on favorite to win this race quite heavily. I'm not sure how the odds are going to change. This was pre-practice and qualifying. I'm not sure if he'll still be the favorite. It might still be. I'm not really sure anything happened in qualifying that would really change too much besides Reddick being on the pole and Kyle Busch in the front row. But other than that, I don't really see anything too drastically changing, maybe besides like Bell going up quite a bit for how bad he qualified. But hard not to like Truex here. I know his numbers aren't amazing because he wasn't in that first group, but for being in the second group, his lap times do look pretty good, and he's amazing at Richmond. He was great at New Hampshire just like a couple weeks ago, absolutely dominated that race, and that's a very similar track. So starting in 10th here, you get a little bit of a cushion. So I like him just about everywhere. Not quite sure if I'll get there in cash games yet or not. I do think Christopher Bell is probably the priority for cash because he's starting in just about 30th, and he's also great at short flat tracks, and I don't think Truex is going to dominate right off the rip, and by that point, Bell should be making hay in the back of the field. So I do like Truex quite a bit, definitely in play for tournaments. Now, if I can fit him in with cash games with Christopher Bell, I mean, sure, but I'll have to see what the ownership projections say, the projections in the Sims, and then we'll go from there. Talk more about that in the live stream tomorrow. Then we have Kyle Larson right below him here at $10,800 on DraftKings, 13.5 on FanDuel. He's starting in 14th, second best odds to win this race, at least pre-practice and qualifying. And he's also in the slower group, so the practice times aren't as good as they could be, but you pretty much have to view him as the same play as Truex. Now, I think Truex has a better chance to dominate and a little bit of higher ceiling, but either way, they're going to project very similar for me, and you get 4 extra spots with Kyle Larson. So even though he's not going to get as many dominator points for me in projections from a median standpoint, I think it will balance it out quite a bit. And he won this Richmond race earlier in the year, and at short flats, him and William Byron, the teammates, have just been incredible. So definitely like both of these guys, but again, we'll see as far as cash games are concerned, but definitely in the tournament radar for sure. Then Denny Hamlin, $10,500. He's starting in 3rd. I do think he'll come in lower owned than guys like Truex and Larson, especially if people are looking at the early runs in practice where he was 34th in the 1 and 32nd in the 5. But he came out in Group 1s really late in the group. So the track was already slowed down quite a bit. But if you're looking at the long run, it definitely got a lot better. In Richmond, great track for Denny. The most dominant points here the past few years, averaging the most DraftKings points per race. It's also a home track for him. And he's got good track position too. I'm just speculating, but we could have a competition caution on Sunday. It's supposed to rain and storm Saturday night in Richmond. So if it does get the track, there's a chance they could have that. Either way, I mean, starting in 3rd, he's right behind Tyler Reddick and Kyle Busch. Both those guys, Tyler Reddick, not really a short flat track guy too much, doesn't really dominate at these. And Kyle Busch and RCR, they just really haven't had a ton of speed at the short flats this year. I know they did a Gateway, but a little bit of a different scenario there, and he was on the pole. But I think Denny's probably the best driver in that first 2 rows. I know he has Chase Elliott right beside him, but I think that makes for an interesting play in tournaments for Denny, so I'll try to be overweight there. Kyle Busch at $10,400. He is cheaper on FanDuel. I could see him being a bit better of a play over there. He's starting in 2nd, so he has great track position. Thing is, though, RCR just has really not had the speed at these track types. I know he's got some good numbers at Richmond, but most of those were, really not most, all of them were with, he was in the 18 car with JGR, and JGR tends to run this track very well. I mean, Bell's great here, Truex, Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Busch back in the day. So, I mean, yeah, they just had really solid numbers overall. But I'll probably end up being lower on Kyle Busch. Now, I do want to mention that I did see that Tyler Reddick has the potential to go to the rear, checking some of the damage when he hit the wall. So that could change some things a little bit. But I'm just going to assume that's not going to happen. But if it does, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Christopher Bell, $10,200. He's starting all the way back in 29th. Will be a very popular play, but deservedly so. I mean, Bell is going to have a fast car. He's great at short flat tracks. He's great at Richmond. I don't see a reason not to like him here. Now, thing is, if you want to fade him for some guys starting closer to the front to pick up dominator points, and you think Bell gets stuck in 15th all day, that is certainly a strategy. And if you are rostering Bell, you cannot go place differential heavy. And I'm sorry if you can hear the thunder out there. It's storming, but this is the only time I had to record the video for you all. But there's a chance you could get away from Bell, because if you get away from Bell and you go like Denny Harvick and both those guys dominate, yeah, they'll be better plays than Christopher Bell. But I mean, if you do roster Bell, just make sure you get a couple guys up front to mix and match with that, because you can't just go straight PD, and that's not the route you want to go at a track like this, because there's a lot of dominator points to be had. And if you completely throw those away for place differential, sure, maybe you can min cash, but it's not going to take down a tournament. And then Kevin Harvick, $10,100 on DK. He's starting back in 8th. I was hoping he's going to qualify a little bit better. I do have a ticket on him to win at plus 900 over at BetMGM. Was 750 on DK, but still respectable. Got into the top 10, but it looks like he's got a really, really good car. It wasn't that slower group, but if you're looking at all the cars from Group 2, I think he might have been the best there. He's putting down some really good laps, especially in the long run. Did run something over on the track at the end, but it looks like he's going to be fine. And if there's ever a race for Harvick to win this year, I think this is probably his best chance. I was looking at the green flag speed numbers and this tire combination. Harvick's at the top. He was crushed Richmond green flag speed-wise. He won this race last year, and he's been great at short flat tracks in the next-gen car and really in general. So I'm liking Harvick a lot, and I think he's one of the better tournament plays on the entire slate. Dropping down to the 9K range, William Byron should have a ton of speed here. Like I said earlier, William Byron, Kyle Larson, just been so fast at the short flats. And Byron also led a lot of laps here earlier in the season. Swept practice, wasn't that first group, so keep in mind, could be skewed a little bit, but either way, he should still have one of the fastest cars on the track. And his pit crew's been so good, and when your pit crew can get you 1 and 2 spots every single time you come down pit road, at some point you're probably going to get up front. And if you're up front below 10K at Richmond, you're going to rack up some dominator points, and that can add up in a hurry. So I do like him in tournaments a lot. I think him and Kevin Harvick are some of the absolute best GPP plays on the entire slate. If people tend to go with the place differential guys of Joey Logano and Christopher Bell a little bit more. And speaking of Joey, starting in 23rd, I think you should view him as a very similar play to Christopher Bell, just a little bit cheaper, but he's been great at Richmond. Wasn't that slower group for practice, so numbers don't look amazing, but given that information, it honestly isn't too bad. So I do think Joey's fine, but I do like getting the guys like Byron, Harvick, just a little bit more for tournaments, but Joey's certainly in play. Chase Elliott, $9,500. He's starting in 4th. The price is enticing. Obviously good in practice, but numbers are skewed a bit, so I'll try to stop saying that so often. And he has been good at the short flat tracks in the next-gen car, but it just seems like ever since he came back from injury, the speed just hasn't really been there. I know he kind of ran well at Pocono after getting some track position last week, but he hasn't really been someone that's been contending to win. Does have good track position, though, so if he can hang within the top 5 for the majority of the day at $9,500 and pick up some fast laps, he'll be in play for tournaments, but I would not get there in cash games. We'll just have to see how he stacks up when I run my ownership projections and see if we can get some leverage up there. It's going to be tough, though, because I think Byron will project better. So will Joey starting in 23rd. Then you also have Chastain and Blaine with some place differential. So we will see. He's definitely in a hornet's nest of good plays for sure. Ross Chastain, $9,200. He's starting in 19th. Ran well at Richmond earlier in the season. Practice times, once you look at the long run speed, really not too bad. And he has been fast at the short flats so far this year. So I think he's certainly playable. Probably only for tournaments, though, but I do like the price point. It is kind of low. Then we have Ryan Blaney, who I think is in a very similar boat to Ross Chastain. I mean, just amazing at short flat tracks, always in his career, but next-gen car has been pretty good for him. If you're looking at this 10-race sample size, some of the overall absolute best numbers here for Ryan Blaney. Problem is, though, Richmond isn't really one of his best tracks in the world, but given the fact that he was in the first group, I don't think his practice speeds look too bad, especially in the long run, so he's certainly in play. I feel like I've said that for just about every driver so far. But, I mean, they're just good plays. It is what it is. I think it's one of those weeks where you're going to be pretty spread out because I don't think really anyone stands out a ton. So we'll have to find a way to get different. And once I actually look at the numbers, it's easier for me to do. But, I mean, a lot of these guys have looked good so far. I feel like Elliott and Busch might be the ones I'm lowest on right now. But we'll have to see how that stacks out. Now, dropping down to the 8K range, we have probably the most interesting talking point of the entire slate because we have Reddick on the pole. And he's like $8,900 for a 400-lap race. Problem is, though, he's a big wild card. He did hit the wall, so there is a chance he drops to the rear. I just saw the tweet from Bob, and if he dropped to the rear, he is absolutely unplayable. I will have 0% of Tyler Reddick. If he doesn't have to go to the rear, and he leads majority of stage 1 at below 9K for a 400-lap race, that's going to look pretty good. We know Reddick can have a lot of speed. It's just he's such a wild card. I feel like every single week he has some sort of issue, whether it be a flat tire after running really fast, he hits the wall, he has an issue on pit road. I mean, you guys have been there. You've all rostered Tyler Reddick, and that's just the experience you have with him. So just keep that in mind. By no means does he feel very safe for me, but if you are playing cash games and you just want to lock in the pole sitter to lead, 50-plus laps, I don't hate it, especially at that price point, because as long as he doesn't rack out, he can finish probably anywhere in the top 10 with his decent cushion, and he won't kill you. But I think for tournaments, it does make sense to probably get exposure to some other drivers around here and not go overboard on Reddick, because he is one of those guys that's such a wild card. Tons of talent, tons of speed usually, but putting together a full race is always a bit of a question mark. Brad Keselowski, $8,600. He's like, you could definitely pivot to Brad here, starting in 13th. Now, definitely has a much tougher path to get dominator points for sure. But if anything happens to Reddick, Brad Keselowski here, starting in 13th, if he could sneak in like a 7th place finish with some fast laps. I don't think it's a bad play at all. And I think this is a track that sets up really well for Brad. Short flat track, which he is good at, and tire wear, which he's good at managing. So I think he's fine for tournaments, even though the practice speeds don't look too pretty. Ty Gibbs, $8,300. Probably put him in the same boat as Brad, although a bit of a riskier play. He's a rookie, and I can definitely trust Brad a little bit more. Gibbs is very up or down, but the talent's certainly there, and he should have a fast car. Alex Bowman, $8,100. Another guy that's just a victim of these slow practice speeds for being in the second group. Starting in 15th, he does have some pretty good numbers at Richmond. If we're looking at the past 6 races here, average finish inside the top 10, running position almost inside the top 10. Saw the win from Denny that one year, 4 top 10s, 5 top 15s. At his price point and a Hendrick car for where he's starting, he's definitely in play here. Probably will end up projecting the best of this group besides Tyler Reddick, if I had to guess. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have Daniel Suarez at $7,800. He was putting down some good laps in practice. Wasn't that first group, though, keep in mind. Ended up qualifying 33rd. He's not going to be a borderline top 30 car in this race, so if you're just looking for place differential and cash games, I mean, it's hard to not like Suarez here. Does have 4 top 20s here in the past 6 races. And if you're looking at short flats in general in the next-gen car for Daniel Suarez, not the absolute most amazing numbers, but average finish around 15th, 3 top 10s, 6 top 20s. Like, he'll probably finish inside the top 20, and at that price point, that's fine for cash games, but there's certainly other guys to get to in tournaments. Like, you could look at Chris Buescher here, $7,700. He's starting in 26. He was putting down some good laps in practice. And I like Buescher here. I think he's an interesting pivot if Suarez is going to have much higher ownership. Now, if it's pretty close in ownership, I mean, it's not going to be a huge deal. But if there's definitely a sway towards Daniel Suarez, I do like the pivot here to Chris Buescher. He actually has had some pretty good numbers at short flats in the next-gen car. We're looking at a 9-race sample size, but average finish 15.3, but 6 top 15s, 2 top 10s. And he's had some decent runs at Richmond before, so I think Buescher makes sense. We have Bubba Wallace here, which I'm not sure exactly what to do with him. He's $7,500 and really cheap on FanDuel at 65, starting in 5th, so we have good track position. But I never really loved Bubba at the short flat tracks. I like him at the larger ones. He was putting down some really good laps in practice in the first group, keep in mind. But some pretty bad numbers here, Richmond. Just not really been that great here. 24.2 average finish. Running position just outside the top 20. Doesn't have the top 10 here. Only 1 top 15 finish and only 1 top 20 as well. So it hasn't exactly been amazing for Bubba. If we stretch this out to just the next-gen car with 2311 Racing for Bubba, we're talking average finish of 18.6. Still not that great. Does have a top 5 under his belt. So I'm probably not going to have much Bubba, to be honest, because when you're looking at the other 7K drivers, you have Suarez with PD, you have Buescher with PD, you have Almirola with PD, who was absolutely killing in practice. Like, Bubba was good in practice, but Almirola was even better. Then you have Briscoe, who's also good at short flats with PD, so I just don't really see a way that I'm going to get the Bubba too much. Almirola crushed it in practice. He wasn't that first group, but still just overall really great lap times. And really good here at Richmond. Average finish of 11th, average running position at 12.8. Love him at short flat tracks, so I think Almirola is one of the better plays in the entire slate. Chase Briscoe, he sucks at intermediates, but at short flat tracks, that's where you can play him. So I do have interest there. In the 7K range, it's kind of loaded this week. I think all these guys are in play, but Almirola is probably my favorite as of right now. Dropping down to the 6K range, we have Ryan Preece, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I feel like you can kind of put these guys in the same grouping here, where they're just kind of ugly looking plays when you're looking at their starting positions. Well, honestly, I don't think Ryan Preece is the worst tournament play in the world. I know he was in the slower group in practice, and he put down some decent lap times, like 9th in the 20 lap, 8th in the 25, and then 7th in the 30 lap, which, I mean, if you're looking at Tyler Reddick, he was actually beating him in just every single category there. So I don't think Preece looks terrible for tournaments, and if you're going to play SHR cars, short flats is really the only place to do it. So I can hop on board for a little sprinkle in GPPs. Austin Dillon, I don't love RCR at the short flats. I will say Richmond's been a very good track for him, and he is pretty good at the tire wear tracks. If you're looking here, you're going to see some nice shades of green randomly. Down here, 12.7 average finish at Richmond, 15.5 in the running position, 3 top 10s, 4 top 15s, 5 top 20s. Starting in 17th, he'll probably finish anywhere from like 15th to 20th, so if he can just be in the upper end of that, he'll be fine. I'm not like super excited about it, but he's playable just because of how good he is at Richmond. And then Stenhouse, fired off strong, a little bit slower in the long run there. It wasn't that first group, keep in mind. He's probably going to fall back, so he's going to be, I think, the one that I'm having the toughest time getting to of these 3. And then after that, we just have a bunch of ugly place differential plays. Eric Jones is playable just because he's Eric Jones, and he's just a little bit too cheap, in my opinion, for starting in 27th, and he's just been finding a way to get the job done recently. But if he can just stay top 25, I don't think he'll be too upset about that. Early group, but practice times were good there at the very beginning, but again, they are skewed. AJ Allmendinger, so it was actually believe it's Kraus, I don't know how you say his name. But he was the one practicing qualifying for AJ Allmendinger because he's in Xfinity right now at Road America. And I'll tell you right now, I don't think he's doing too hot. But he's going to be starting dead last here in 36. So if you're just looking for a place differential play, I mean, Dinger's not going to be the worst car on the track. So I do like him, but he definitely is a threat to be laps down. Thing is, though, he can still do fine being a lap down. Just running in 36, because if there's going to be 10, 15 cars a lap down, if he can just pass some of those guys, it's fine. So I think AJ Allmendinger definitely makes sense. Will be chalky. Justin Haley starting in 28th. Wasn't that first group, so I don't think he's the 6th best car on the track. He should be able to contend for the top 25, which is fine at that price point. It's not pretty, but I mean, just makes a match. Ryan Newman, no thank you. No idea why he's this expensive. The books just overprice him every week. Like, there is no reason at all for him to have the same exact odds as Ryan Preece before practicing qualifying. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Michael McDowell, $5,900. He's starting in 18th. He's just been so good this year with front row. I wouldn't be surprised if he can hold his position. He's not going to project as well as some of these other guys like Dinger, Jones, Justin Haley, but he does have the track position. So if you're looking for a pivot off of the chalkier plays, I guess it would be McDowell. Austin Cindric, starting in 30th. I mean, it's sad because if this is the beginning of the year and we saw Cindric at $5,800 at a short flat track starting in 30th, I feel like he'd be the chalk of the slate. And at this point, I'm just hesitant to play him. Like he's just been so bad this year. The two cars has been rough. Although I think they said they're moving towards the Joey Logano or Ryan Blaney setup, which maybe it'll help him a little bit, but like he's in play. Like just all these guys, there's really not much separating them. Just mix and match and hope you get the right combo. That's really all I can say. I mean, if anyone has a deep, in-depth take on Austin Cindric, I'd like to hear it, but I don't really think we have much to work with, to be honest. But definitely fired off slow in practice. Harrison Burton starting in 22nd. I mean, probably just the worst version of Michael McDowell here for starting position. Corey LaJoie is cheap. He's $5,400 starting in 31st. Hope he gains some spots. It's really all we got. Then Gilliland, it's almost impossible to play him, honestly, starting in 16th. Noah Gregson in 12th. No, thank you. Dropping down to the 4K range, we have Ty Dillon, JJ Yeley, BJ McLeod. It sucks. So really below LaJoie, I don't think I have really any interest in these guys. And then even then, it's just really ugly. So Dinger and Jones will probably be your really chalky, cheap plays this week. And then I could see Cindric getting some ownership as well just because he's so cheap starting in the back. But with that being said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I hope you did enjoy. And if you did, make sure you leave a like. And if you didn't enjoy, well, you can still leave a like anyway. And don't forget to check out the Patreon. We got a week free over there if you want to check out all the extra content. And don't forget Prize Picks and Underdog, the sponsor of the show. Promo code CPEN for the deposit match bonus up to $100. Hopefully I'll see you guys on the live stream tomorrow around noon Eastern. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.